On this week's episode of Sunday with Guy, we're checking out not just one, not two, but three bright and colorful watches from Zodiac in the new lineup of Super Seawolf Ceramic Divers. And I have to say that these three watches are great, especially the blue variant, which is easily my favorite of the bunch. But there is the orange and white model as well, and of course there's the familiar Zodiac watermelon version, if that's your thing. What's up everyone, I'm Guy, and this is my Sunday with Guy show. It's a weekly episode where I try to change it up from time to time and do something different every week. And sometimes it's answering viewer questions and comments, other times it's just me talking about what's on my mind. And this week I thought, let's check out a trio of watches. And I don't typically do videos on multiple watches at once because, well, it's just a lot of extra work to film three watches instead of one. But when I was picking out some watches to borrow from my channel partner and sponsor, Exquisite Timepieces, I saw these and I said, you know, I have to do all three. And real quick, a big thanks to Exquisite Timepieces for loaning me these watches for the video. Now, if you don't know Exquisite, they're a brick and mortar authorized dealer of dozens of watch brands, including Zodiac. So if you're interested in these watches or anything else that they sell, definitely give them a shout. You can ask for my buddy, Joe McHale, or you can email him, and he will definitely take care of you. You can reach out to him at joe@exquisitetimepieces.com. So Zodiac is kind of a sleeper brand in my opinion. They don't get nearly the attention that they deserve, and I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, I am constantly impressed with their watches every time I get the opportunity to experience them. The Super Seawolf Skin Diver is a phenomenal vintage-inspired throwback model that I love. And then there's the ISO-compliant Pro Diver model on a 7-link bracelet, and that is top-notch as well. And these ceramic compression divers, they're no less impressive, but they are perhaps a bit more whimsical and fun with their white ceramic cases and their eccentric colorways. As far as specifications go on these models, the ceramic cases come in at 41 millimeters in case diameter, and they measure just over 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. The watches are about 13 millimeters thick, and they are 20 millimeters wide between the lugs. And I have to say that overall, I would call these watches with that wingspan approaching 51 millimeters a little bit big. But for some reason, they still just feel good on the wrist. Now, my wrist is 6.5 inches, and on the wrist, these wear surprisingly well. It could be because of the somewhat aggressive downward angle of the lugs, or maybe it's just because of the case shape, or maybe it's the color, or something else that I just can't put my finger on. But I don't mind the sizes on these, and normally, I would say that something this size is just too big for me. As far as the rest of the specifications are concerned, we, of course, have that white hardened ceramic case with stainless steel core, coming in at 200 meters water resistant with a screw-down crown. The watch, being a diver, of course, has a 120-click unidirectional elapsed timing bezel, and it rides on a tropic rubber strap. Hey, by the way, hit that subscribe button already. Over 80% of you guys watching aren't subscribed yet, and I gotta say, that's crazy. Look, it's my job to make the videos, it's your job to click the like and the subscribe buttons, so help a brother out, will you? Now, back to the watch. The movement in these watches is the STP-1-11. It's a 26 joule movement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour with a 44-hour power reserve. It's basically an ETA 2824-2 clone, similar to something like the Sellita SW200 movements that we see in a lot of watches. Now, I have to say that the really nice thing about these movements is that they are comparable, I guess you would say, to a top-grade ETA movement, in that they have been tested in 5 positions, and according to several third-party articles that I read, they should run at -3 to +7 seconds per day, which is, in my opinion, absolutely excellent. Now, the retail price on these comes in at $1,795. Some people will find that excessive, no doubt about it. Others won't have a problem with it. My take is that it's honestly not too bad. And sure, I'd like it if all of my watches cost less, but the ceramic case and bezel is going to cost money. There's no way around that. A nicely regulated top-grade Swiss movement, it's gonna cost money. And everything just costs more today. The watches do have glow-in-the-dark super luminova applied to the dial and the hands, and it's pretty good. The blue dial variant actually has a blue-toned lume, while the other two watches have a more traditional green lume. And no, it is not Seiko bright when it comes to the intensity of the luminescence, but it's adequate to say the least. Now, the rubber strap is outstanding, by the way. It's super comfortable on the wrist, absolutely, yes. But it also looks great. And I personally especially love the subtle basket weave pattern, giving the strap a nice texture. And I have to say that thanks to the rubber straps and probably the ceramic case construction as well, these watches are very lightweight and they are super comfortable to wear. And given these colors, and of course that fit on the wrist, these make for some superb summer watches, especially if, like me, you live in a warm climate like South Florida. Now, there is probably one or two minor negatives that I found with these watches. No watch is absolutely perfect. First, the bezel action on these watches, while perfectly usable, is a little bit on the stiff side. And again, yes, it is usable, but for the price, I'd have to say that I'd have liked to have felt a bit more of a refined bezel action. Maybe it's to do with the ceramic construction or something. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, it's not terrible, but it could be better. And similarly, we have the crown, and specifically the problem that I have with it is threading it in to screw it back down. It feels like there's only two free threads on the stem to catch the crown, and it's a little bit finicky to screw it in. Also, the crown is quite small, so getting your fingers on the crown to work with it is mildly annoying. Now, neither of these issues are necessarily deal breakers for me, but it's not an inexpensive watch, and I'd have liked to have seen a bit more refinement when it comes to those two functions on this watch. Now, other than that, I do really like these watches. Zodiac does things with their designs that not a lot of other brands do. They create great watches, and they do it in a fun way that stands out and looks really different. And I have to say that I applaud them for that. Now, with all of that said, let me close this one out by saying thanks to all of you guys for tuning in and watching. I do really appreciate it. And thanks to Exquisite Timepieces for loaning me these watches for the video. Definitely give them a shout when you're ready to make your next watch purchase. I highly recommend them. And I guess, yeah, with all of that said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And until the next one, say bye now.